Welcome to the Therapeutic Food Solutions podcast. I'm your host, Marian Mitchell. I'm an integrative nutrition health coach, therapeutic diet expert, and founder of The Road to Living Whole. There are many different diets out there. It's hard to know which one is right for you with your chronic illness and autoimmune disease. In this podcast, I'm going to share with you the foundational pieces every single therapeutic diet out there shares, and also how to use the best one for your particular diagnosis. If you've been looking for a meal planning partner, help navigating the complicated healthcare system, and want to feel better quickly, I'm your girl. Grab your kombucha and notebook. Let's dive in. Today is a very special episode. We are actually going to have three of us here discussing an incredible topic. It's going to be highly educational, and you guys are going to want to tune in the whole time. With me today, I have Bill Hunt and Phil Escott, and they are some of the co-authors of the Red Pill Revolution, and they're quite opinionated on the food system, and we are going to really dive into that today, and I'm super excited. Welcome. Who wants to get started first?
What should I do? Shall I go?
All right. Let's do this, Phil.
All right, Bill. I'm just taking the mickey because it's Ben.
Oh, did I say Bill? I am so sorry.
I always call him the wrong name, you know. He calls me the wrong name all the time. It's absolutely fine.
I'm sorry, Ben.
Weird, actually, because I know a Bill Hunt. I actually know one. But anyway, Marian, yes. Thank you so much for having us on. That's great. Yeah, well, my story is basically sort of on the food side anyway, getting sucked into all the sort of vegetarianism for sort of 30 odd years, with the sort of spiritual side of things being part of the whole, you know, transcendental meditation movement and all that. So I got really into the whole food thing and studied food like crazy and studied Ayurvedic medicine, that kind of thing. And even wrote a couple of books on plant-based eating back in the 90s. And then by the late 2000s, things were starting to go wrong. And in 2010, I was completely crippled with psoriatic arthritis. So I had to find a way out. My first idea was to go even more vegetarian, which was, you know, vegan, and then all the juicing, and then fruitarianism, all that sort of thing. And all it did was make me emaciated and gave me kidney stones, but it didn't do much for the joints. And then I finally realized that humans are supposed to eat meat. And so I started, you know, the usual progression of paleo and keto and all that. And it was good, and wrote a book called Arthritis, the Best Thing That Ever Happened to Me back in 2014, I think. But it really I didn't have any particular issues, but the health sort of really jumped up a notch in 2015 when I went fully carnivore, and I've been so ever since, and don't eat any plants at all. And I expect we'll talk about the enormous amount of cons that there are in the world, you know, in the food world, and all the advice there. And then I started off a carnivore group on Facebook, and wrote a couple of carnivore like sort of help books and ebooks, and made a video, have a YouTube channel under my own name with a lot of interviews and carnivory stuff and all sorts of other things. And then I met Ben through my Facebook group, and Ben was helping me out with my autoimmunity course online. And then I also met a couple of other guys. I think you know John Gusty, right?
Yep, we've had him on the show.
Yeah, he's cool. So Ben and I are part of the Red Pill Revolution thing with Jeremy Ayres and Graham Norbury and John Gusty. And so we wrote the Red Pill Revolution book, but also the Red Pill Food Revolution. And we sort of did it from all sorts of Zoom calls, and Ben was the real wordsmith on that. And the food one that's upcoming now is brilliant. And now I run the Big Fat Challenge and the Big Fat Tribe with Ben, and help people to see through all the cons of the food system. So that's me, really.
That's awesome. I can relate to your story. I had the same progression, you know, going vegetarian, getting sicker, going vegan, getting sicker.
I saw that.
Yeah. You know, and just and going raw. And then finally I was like, I can't do this anymore, and introduced meat back into my diet, and my health.
Did you get the kidney stones as well?
I thankfully did not, but I dealt with the other stuff. My cycle got really wonky. I had like my hormones just like went out of control. I started gaining weight, and my psoriasis flared, and I was like trying to get those under control, and they just kept getting worse. So thankfully I did not ever get kidney stones.
Well, that's, what you've had is the results of a healthy plant-based diet. Sounds quite typical to me. Anyway, Ben,
Yes.
sorry. I'm way all over Ben's intro here. Go on, then.
I don't have anything like as interesting a backstory as Phil, and I really don't have much of a history with autoimmunity either, I'm afraid. I came into all of this by being a homesteader, a smallholder. We've got a large garden. I got really into growing my own vegetables and fruits and chilies and stuff like that. We've kept chickens and ducks for years here. And I used to be a crazy greenie. I was absolutely obsessed with the environment and worrying that the sky was going to burn and fall on our heads and all of that kind of stuff. And I got obsessed with the idea of building soil, the fact that we could draw down carbon out of, because it's such a horrible pollutant, out of the atmosphere and turn it into soil in the earth. And that took me to a bunch of conferences. I went to conferences and seminars in this country, and I started hearing about how cows and ruminant animals were somehow very important, not only for the soil, which was a surprise to me, because like everyone else, I've been told that burping and farting cows were going to choke us all to death. But also, I was starting to hear things about the importance of meat and the fatty acids and the nutrients that you can really only get from meat. And as a curious, but I mean, I've always been fascinated with how can we live as human beings? How can we be happy, prosperous, and peaceful, living free, walking upon the earth? And that led me to Phil's Facebook group, and Phil and I connected, and the rest is history. We've just taken it all from there.
What I love about your story, and I do think you have a very valuable one, is I feel like most of us are trying to make ourselves and the world a better place. And we hear what we hear and we believe it, it makes sense. But then as we start diving in and really researching and thinking for ourselves, like we realize that it's so much more complicated than what the media portrays and what the agenda portrays, right? And then we kind of just want to shout it from the rooftops, right? And we get connected to people. And what I love about your story is I'm kind of drawn to that too. Like I have a black thumb. I kill everything that I try to plant, but I love the idea of homesteading and regenerative agriculture and the role that animals play in that, living in that symbiotic relationship. And again, I think it's this progression, right? We hear it, we buy into what the media tells us and what makes sense, and the more research we do, we just kind of spiral and go deeper. And that's really what we're going to talk about today, is just sharing what we've learned and why we are so passionate about it. We are all on the same team of like, we want to get people healthy with the real health, and it's not what you're reading from the media, from magazines, from articles. Like it's so much deeper than that. And you really have to be willing to set aside your preconceived notions and be open to hear the other side, whether you change your mind or not. We can't do that, but we hope that you just get all the information that's available and can make an educated choice, right? So you guys have shared your stories. What topic should we tackle first?
Well, I suppose I'll kick off. I think, thinking how we had similar stories and had to uncover lots of layers of misinformation in the diet world. For me, it's I wish it was anything that was so effective apart from carnivory, because it's such a difficult thing for people to accept. You're going to get scurvy, you're going to be constipated, you're going to have colon cancer, you're going to have heart disease. And the funny thing is, I see it curing everything that fatty meat is supposed to cause. And, among the Facebook group and among clients I have, because I do consults, that's my main thing, really. Just the healing we see is incredible. And it's so weird then to go to your YouTube channel and you have a vegan sending you death threats or something and saying, I hope you have your children taken away. And quite often, a year or two later, they'll come to me and say, "Look, you were right, and my thyroid's exploded, or something's gone wrong, or And it's very difficult for somebody to just sort of immediately accept that this was our ancestral diet. And then they go, "Oh, well, you were vegan and now you're carnivore. You've gone from one extreme to another." And I would say, well, no, not at all. I've just gone basic, because this is the thing that we ate in every latitude, all through history. I had Mary Ruddick on my podcast a little while ago, and she was sort of bedridden from a vegan diet and now fixed herself with carnivory and lives with all the tribes and knows exactly what they eat, from the Arctic to the Amazon to Africa. She knows exactly what they eat, and it's not quinoa, and it's not even nuts and seeds and berries, very rarely, occasionally, that some of these people might find these things in season, but it's meat. That's really what's available worldwide the whole time. And that's suddenly what we're being told is going to kill us. And that's the most dangerous food. And it's getting pretty serious now with this war on meat. It really is.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I don't know if people know what's going on in like Norway, and with shutting down all of the farms and the protests that are happening, like it's really hard to see. I see it because I follow independent journalists and things, but it's not easy to find. There really is this war happening on farms and regenerative farming. They really want monocrops and bugs, and it does not make sense.
Well, that's Ben's side of it. I'm sure he's going to go well into that. But for me, the sort of health side of it is so important, because if they take that away, I don't really, very rarely do I eat any dairy, eggs, or chicken or pork. I'm lamb and beef, fatty lamb and beef. That's it, and I love it, and that's what I eat. And that's what I've eaten for 8 years, with the occasional stray into a couple of other meats. Fish maybe. But if people knew this, if people knew how essential it was, and how it's the only diet that you can eat really as a mono diet and survive, some fruitarians would argue, but they always run into trouble down the line. And if they knew exactly what was going on, seed oils created for machine lubricant, and this is what we're supposed to be eating that's heart healthy, since all the heart disease problems started. The cancer and stuff that started since all the processed food and all of that. And, all sorts of other things, the EMFs, artificial light, grounding. We're probably going to focus on the food at the moment, but it's not all that we look at. But the thing that gets me is the real myths about this plant-based thing. Everybody thinks plant-based healthy. People who eat a steak usually think, "Oh, hang on, I'll have a steak once this week because I'm being naughty." No. The rest of the days they're eating junk food, they're eating cereal, and they're eating pasta and all that sort of thing. And they think that's healthy. And they think that among all of those plants, that tiny bit of processed chicken in a sandwich that they have is the thing that's going to cause them bowel cancer, because of these ridiculous studies. And I want to get it across to people of how important it is, because when people wake up to it, if they have any issue, it really is, really, really is. I've never seen a diet work better than the carnivore diet for reversing autoimmunity. Some people have terrible trouble, even with, the so-called healthy green veg and stuff like that. They are toxic. Our friend Anthony Chafee, he's made a great video that everyone should watch on YouTube called "Plants Are Trying to Kill You." And when that there's that he lists a whole load of the carcinogens that he was told about by one of his university professors a long time ago. He's been carnivore on and off for like 20 odd years. That there's 136 carcinogens in a Brussels sprout. There's 60 in the least toxic veg. Is there anything really that healthy? There's fewer in fruit, but still got a lot of fructose, got deuterium, which messes about the mitochondria. And we were designed to eat that in season. But, we're not militant or anything. I think everybody should do exactly what they want. If you want to be a vegan, whatever. But understand that meat is not killing the planet. It's not unspiritual. It's not unhealthy. In fact, it's the healthiest thing you could possibly eat. And do with that information what you like. But fight back against these people who are having this war on meat, because one day you might need it. If you're veggie or vegan, and you come back and it's gone. And then all we're doing is eating Bill Gates's Beyond Burgers and cricket flour. And that's not going to keep anyone healthy. It's horrific. So that's my rant about learning about plant toxins and understanding that these things are not. Some people deal with plant toxins better than others. But carnivore isn't extreme. It's just basic. That's all. The ultimate elimination diet. Stay on it if you want. Reintroduce things if you want. But plants are not really your friends.
Yeah. But let's pick up on something that you said earlier, Phil. You know, when you said that people say to you, oh, when you go from vegan and raw vegan over to carnivore, you're just swapping one extreme diet for another, right? And that's actually it's a logical fallacy, saying that it's called the argument to moderation, the fact that the right answer must lie somewhere in the middle, right? So I mean that's not proper logic, but it's very much part, isn't it, of the program that we are being told over and over again, that a little bit of what you fancy is fine, and we should all have a balanced diet. And I'd love to know where this idea of a balanced diet actually originated. We know where 5 a day originated. That came out of a marketing strategy meeting in 1991 of fruit and vegetable grocers, sellers, and the American Cancer Organization. But this idea of a balanced diet, what your body needs, like a true balanced diet is, put everything in that your body needs. That's all the amino acids that you need and all the fatty acids that you need, and some minerals, salts, and maybe some phytonutrients that will come in, and as little as possible of what it doesn't, as little as possible of the toxins that you don't really need. Now, when we've gone all the way back to the Ice Age and the Paleolithic and seen how people ate, sure, we would have grabbed whatever calories we could. If there wasn't a successful hunt and we found a bush heaving with soft fruits, we'd have filled our boots, right? You'd have grabbed all you can, you'd have filled your face, and you'd have eaten the meat of animals that have been eating on grass that had gone to seed, for example, higher in omega-3s at that time of year in the summer. And the effect of that, the excess like linoleic acid from the grass seeds and the extra sugars that you'd get from that, and you get some nuts and stuff like that, that would have been done something really, really vital for our survival as a species, which was to help us get fat to survive the winter. And the Ice Age winters would have been quite severe. And so getting fat is a really, really important survival trait. The problem is, and yes, we would have taken in that extra deuterium, we'd have taken in the extra omega-6s and all that kind of stuff, but we would have then had the whole winter to pee that stuff out again. We'd have got rid of it, right? You'd gone behind the bush, you'd have got rid of your deuterium and all this other stuff. The problem that we've got today is that people are being told that the biggest chunk of your diet should come from grains and stuff processed out of grains, fruit and vegetable as much as you can. And you can have the odd soda, and you can have a sugar-covered donut as well, because why not? And but definitely limit the fatty meat. So the problem with that is that you're drinking half a gallon of soda that's now sweetened with high fructose corn syrup. It's not even good old-fashioned sugar anymore, which is a recreational drug, not a food source anyway. But you're sucking down all this high fructose corn syrup. You're eating all these carbs and these grains constantly. And so although our bodies are actually very, very, very good at getting rid of toxins, the natural environmental toxins that we've evolved to deal with, there's no way we can deal with the sheer tsunami of toxicity that we're piling into our faces these days. And that's why our systems are breaking down. We're getting metabolic disorder, right? We're getting fatty liver, we're getting fatty pancreas, the beta cells are getting clogged up with fat. And, everything just breaks down from that point. And that's why I think we're getting sick. It's not that we can't deal with this stuff. It's just that we cannot cope with the sheer level. But we're being told over and over again, you should eat a balanced diet. A balanced diet's got to be good. And I'm really, really fascinated with how they've taken over the control of the cultural narrative around food and drilling this stuff into us. You only have to look at the sharp uptick in obesity that happened around 1980, which is when the US brought in its first dietary guidelines for Americans as well. And clearly, whatever they are doing, like whether they're just dumb or they are malevolent, whichever way you want to look at it, they're doing a really, really bad job at looking after our health.
Well, I think especially in the US, it's bought and paid for. It's whoever gives them the most money, right? I mean, I look at the American Dietetic Association, and I have friends that went to school to be dietitians who won't give them their money because they're like, you're sponsored by Coke and McDonald's. Like they're like, there is in no realm is that any part of a healthy diet. And to even say like, oh, to be balanced, you can have this stuff. No, really, you shouldn't, right? But it's bought and paid for. Even sugar, in the 1950s, that was bought and paid for by the sugar industry. And then there's been this battle between, big ag, right? Cows, dairy, and then, the sugar and the grains and all that. And there's like this just constant battle, right? And, a lot of people don't know that saturated fat is no longer demonized, right? And a lot of people don't know that animal protein is more than just amino acids. It's tons of minerals. There are omega-3s in it, and how important eating seasonally is. And I feel like that's like the layers, right? Like at first you realize, oh, I need to eat plants because they're healthy, and you go to the excess on that, and then you start coming back. And I remember when I came back from the vegan diet because I was so sick, and I started researching the Weston A. Price, 1920s dentist who went around the world, looked at diets and teeth, right? And it was mind-boggling to me, and that I was like, this is from the 1920s, and people just toss it. Like we know how these primitive cultures that were not exposed to grains, that didn't have sugar, that just ate traditional diets, it was significantly high amounts of meat that they're saying are going to cause uric acid issues and are going to cause, joint issues from eating so much meat and gallbladder issues. And it is not the case. People died more from injuries than they did, old age. They lived until their 70s, 80s, 90s, hundreds. But, where the discrepancy is obviously birth rates. Children die as infants, and then injuries along the way. But if you can survive the first 5 years, your likelihood of living into your late in life was significantly.
Oh yeah, when they always say, don't they, that these people died young and whatever. But I had in Mary Ruddick, I was asking her about this, and she has this wonderful picture of a family. It's in Africa. I forget which tribe it is, but the old lady's 120 and the daughter is 90, and she's got 6 generations in one pic there. And the old lady, she wasn't like wheeled on and looked with this curiosity. She was dancing with the tribe in the evening. They don't have these issues. And also, did they really die that young? Because when they dig up the bones, they say, well, this looks like it's from a 40-year-old or whatever. But what about the bone density? I mean, it could be from somebody double that age. Because when you eat that kind of diet, I mean, we see it in a carnivore group, people go and get DEXA scans and whatever, and their bone density comes up beautifully when they get onto a carnivore diet and get rid of the plants and all the, the anti-nutrients in those. And to me, it's mad. There's a great saying that I think, I forget who it was said it, but the humans are the only species intelligent enough to make their own food and stupid enough to eat it. And we do this all the time. You have, if there's a zoo animal and the vet goes in and they say, what are you feeding it? Oh, it's a polar bear. It's sick. We've been feeding it like cereal and stuff like that. Well, of course it's sick. It eats seals. It eats fish. It eats that kind of thing. Feed it that. It'll get better. But you go to the doctor. They have no idea. What does a human eat in the wild? Oh, I don't know. Oreos, maybe. I don't know. It's just ridiculous, isn't it? So we've actually forgotten what we eat in the wild. And we've got to eat a balanced diet, including things that only existed for the past couple of 100 years. All that fruit and veg in the shops. I'm sorry, I know we'll be annoying people who love their lovely eating the rainbow as well. That's another thing, isn't it? Oh, let's eat the rainbow. All of this stuff, it doesn't exist in the wild. These tribes do not eat stalks and leaves. They'll eat some nuts, they'll eat some berries, they'll eat some honey, and they'll eat a tuber if the hunt's failed or whatever. But they don't eat stalks and leaves. They sometimes make it into medicines, which are usually applied topically. They don't eat that stuff. They know how poisonous the stalks and leaves of plants are because they don't want us to eat them. And so what do we get? What is the most healthy food? Oh, leafy green veg. I mean, nobody likes it. Chewing your way through a load of kale. It's disgusting. All of this stuff is toxic. I'm sorry, guys. I know there's probably people out there really freaking out who've, gone onto a paleo diet. We say, right, let's cut the grains and let's cut the dairy. But to me, I think a hell of a lot of the problems come from the leafy greens, and they're very, very toxic, real nasty things. And, even some of the fruits, there's like, and the seeds, chia seeds are full of oxalates. Oxalate's one of the nastiest of all the plant toxins. And I would say to everybody, go and read Toxic Superfoods by Sally K. Norton and just see what oxalates might be doing to you. They have an enormous amount of symptoms. And having been on the receiving end of them myself and still shedding them, 12 years after my last spinach smoothie that I was probably getting close to a lethal dose of every day because I thought it was so healthy, with my dark chocolate, my almonds, my turmeric, all of that. It was oxalate soup I was eating every day. And, again, why didn't I twig it? I'd studied diet for 30 years. Why didn't I think, I'm juicing? Is this ancestral? Did our ancestors plug in a juicer and juice up those of the plants that they knew were toxic? It's incredible how stupid I've been and how brainwashed so many people are because of the nonsense that's going on. And I always say that all I needed to do was to look at a cave painting. In my vegan years, why didn't I do that? There's one guy, there's one spear, there's one mammoth, there's no broccoli, there's no quinoa, there's no kale, there's none of that stuff. We never celebrated it. So, yeah, that's the thing. We think about it with animals, put them on their natural diet, they get better. But we don't know what our natural diet is. We have no idea. We've forgotten.
So you heard it here first, everybody. If you want to eat the rainbow, then you're better off with Skittles than you are with the fruit and veg aisle.
I'll go with that because as somebody who's had autoimmunity, I used to eat bars of chocolate early on, in it, and I was fine with that, although I was building up my oxalates. But it's the fiber that was the problem. I'd have more problem with broccoli than I would with chocolate. Not that I'm condoning sort of, seed oil and sugar-filled chocolate and whatever, but because of the fiber, all this 5 a day, all this fiber that we ate. I mean, what about the Inuit? Why didn't they die of scurvy? Why haven't I died of scurvy? But I haven't taken in any vitamin C since, nothing except what's in meat because it competes with the pathway for carbohydrates. So if you don't eat any carbohydrates, you don't need vitamin C. Well, what's in meat is enough. That's why the Inuit never got scurvy. That's why, nature gives you vitamin C in things that are full of carbohydrates, like berries in the autumn. Nature knows you'll need extra vitamin C if you're eating the berries. You don't need the berries. The bush needs you to eat the berries because you go somewhere else and poo out the seeds. There's nothing in the berries that you need. Now, absolutely eat them. If you find some growing on a bush, go fill your face. It's fine. Like Ben says, it's okay. That's not harmful. But the stalks and leaves of the plants, when you're told to eat your broccoli and all these sort of cruciferous veg that we've created as humans, they don't exist in the wild. And it's all nonsense. Eat it if you like, if you can take it. But to me, veg was never more than a sponge for butter anyway. It's so it was. I'm glad to see the back of them. I'd rather have fatty meat. There we go.
But going back to the myth and how they direct the narrative, you're absolutely right, Marian. Weston A. Price nailed it in the 1920s with his book Nutrition and Physical Degeneration, wasn't it? And his conclusion from having done more research, more real on the ground, boots on the ground research than any scientist I think that I know since, his conclusion was it was something that was missing from the diet, not something that was added. And they've kind of found this as well. They did an experiment with rats where they actually injected glucose into the rats' stomachs, bypassing their mouths, and the rats still got dental caries. Their teeth still rotted because it was something that was missing. It's not that sugar in your mouth, sugar on your teeth makes your teeth rot. It's the fact that your macronutrients are off because there's something you're not getting. And what Weston A. Price said you're not getting is you're not getting the fat-soluble vitamins A, D, E, and K, which can only come, everyone needs to know this, only fats from the animal kingdom can store the fat-soluble vitamins, which are essential to our health. Coconut oil is a pretty good fat. Olive oil is a pretty good fat. Avocado oil, these aren't bad, but because they come from the plant kingdom, they cannot store those vitamins that we need. And yet Weston A. Price's stuff has been quietly shoved into a corner, and whose opinions are holding forth in the court of what we should eat? The charlatan, the criminal, Ansel Keys, who should have got an F for his paper in the 1950s with his diet heart hypothesis that wasn't even his own work, and he cheated, right? And he shouldn't have been given a second chance at that. But the guy carried on for years. But because, he was bankrolled by the sugar industry anyway, And the American Heart Association was bankrolled by Procter and Gamble, the originators of Crisco, which came from cottonseed oil, which came out in 1911, just a few years before the first recorded myocardial infarction in the United States. Say it again, throughout the history of the USA, there was not one recorded heart attack. Okay, the ancient Egyptians knew what heart attack was. They wrote about it. They wrote about the symptoms of an oncoming heart attack because they had a 2,500 year culture where they were farming, which is quite exceptional. But it was completely forgotten about for thousands of years, like 4,000 years, until someone wrote about it in the 19th century in Britain. But the first recorded one wasn't until the 1910s in the United States, which just happens to be after they started pushing Crisco as a healthier replacement for lard and animal shortening with the help of a big marketing campaign. But yeah, Procter & Gamble ran a radio contest where they raised over $1 million and handed it over to the American Heart Association, which still tells us to this day that vegetable oils are heart healthy in the face of all the evidence.
Yeah, I remember when I learned that, I was beyond angry, right? Like just how nutrition science is bought. But at the same time, when you look at the real science, the support for animal-based proteins and fats is solid since the 1950s. It's there. It's not hidden. And when you go in with an open mind, that's, you see that, right? Like you see it over and over and over again. And I feel like a lot of this stuff where I feel like a lot of people do try to come from a good place. A lot of scientists do. They want to know, like, how do we get stuff moving out of the colon? Where does cancer come from? Fiber moves things out, right? Like I don't think that everybody is in on it, but there are people and entities that control the narrative. And you have to be willing to break free from that. And I feel like in, the chronic illness community specifically, which is who I help a majority of, they're so disillusioned with the medical community and with them telling them, oh, food doesn't matter and just take these pills. And so they're on this hunt, which I think, we've been there. Like we're on this hunt to better ourselves, to better our health, and to better the world. And it becomes frustrating to realize that the narrative is just bought and paid for. It has no root in health at all. And if you want to be healthy, you have to be willing to do the research and go outside of that and be willing to try new things. Like I remember when I went paleo, and it really was just, I was breastfeeding and I couldn't eat gluten, dairy, soy. I'm allergic to corn. And I was like, well, what's the easiest way to eat? And I went paleo, and I did. I still do a lot of meat and a lot of fat because I feel the best that way. Right. And I'm 38 and I look 25, right? You guys look very young as well. And it's, and everybody's like, well, what do you eat? And I'm like, well, I don't eat crap for one. Right. And I eat a lot of animals, and I'm like, I cook with lard. When I fry, I'm using lard. I don't use Crisco, which was intended to fatten up turkeys for Thanksgiving. Right. And then they just couldn't, and then they were killing turkeys. So farmers wouldn't buy it. So then they marketed it to humans. Right. Like it's crazy when you look at the history.
Yeah, you're right. You do see some beautiful healing up on this kind of thing when you get some proper nutrients. It's like, I was 61 the other day, and I felt a lot older, sort of 15 years ago, definitely. And I was great big fat dude, And it is funny. It's when you get people and they say to you, well, you're not a doctor, what would you know about diet? It's frustrating, isn't it? Because even if you go on some dietary course and get letters after your name, it's nonsense. I found forums of people, of dietitians, saying, how can we push this stuff anymore? We understand the truth now. Now we're sort of controlled by some governing body. And I'm glad I never did. But, I'm free to study everywhere and anywhere, as the three of us are. But doctors, they'll get like a day or so or a couple of hours on nutrition, and then it's all the wrong stuff. And then when you're talking to somebody, they'll be saying, well, you're not a doctor. I did a blog post a while ago. It's called you're not a doctor. Who the F do you think you are? And this is what I've been told so many times. I go, well, I've kind of studied it for 40 years, and I probably, I'll listen to some podcast or study something. I'll probably do a good 2 or 3 hours a day anyway. refining the knowledge and understanding about this and that, listening to different scientists. Oh, so you don't read papers? Well, yeah, I prefer to listen to the scientists that have actually put the papers out. Then you can hear their character as well. You can hear them translating the stuff that you probably wouldn't understand. I say, well, have you read any of these studies? You'll say to a vegan, well, no, but Dr. Greg has told me that we don't need to, because he's done it all for us, and he says that this study says this and that, and he's still out there going, well, all these carnivores, they're going to die of scurvy, and I'm waiting. If you have a really, really bad diet, with a load of carbohydrates with no vitamin C, you'll probably get scurvy in like 3 to 6 months or something like that. But I'm still waiting. It's been 8 years, Gregor. When is this scurvy going to hit? When are my teeth going to fall out? It's very, very strange, and that's the difficulty we have is that people don't understand that the docs now, even the carnivore docs out there now, some fantastic ones that we know, Ken Berry and Anthony Chafee and Sean Baker and whatever, they're great guys, and they're so honest, and we were at a conference a couple of weeks ago near Ben's place in Sheffield, and Sean Baker was there, and our friend Zofia Clements from Paleomedicina in Hungary, who are, the results that they have there with a really high fat, what they call the Paleolithic ketogenic diet, absolutely no plants, no dairy, not even a molecule of dairy. And, the reversals of even sort of very complicated stuff like glioblastomas and whatever. And they're doing actual sort of clinical studies on this now. And nobody's heard of them. These are the people who should be on everybody's TV going, look what's possible here. But they've done it by studying after their traditional thing. I mean, Ken Berry did that book, The Lies My Doctor Told Me. And, it became a very, very, best-selling book. And his practice and his house burned down quite suspiciously within a few months. And it's like, hey, I asked him about that on my podcast, kind of pressed him on that. And he's like, but it was pretty suspicious. And it's, he says, I love it when he says, look, I'm doing what I do now to apologize for the fact that, for what I did to my patients when I was going by my medical school training. And it's only the doctors who aren't lazy and actually research after their med school. And then a load of them are just dropping out of the health system. And hopefully, people go on about saving the NHS in England. And we at this conference, a lot of it was about that. And we're like, why do you want to save the NHS? Wind it up. There should be a casualty. There should be an A&E department, for broken bones and stuff like that. And then a human body department. Not all these little departments selling different pills for different, if your left kidney's on the blink, then you need a certain pill. Your right kidney's on the blink, you need another one, and then a load of other things to stop that blowing up your pancreas and detaching your retina and all of this. And yet people are still queuing up to go and get that stuff. It needs to come out. Otherwise, we're kind of doomed, really. We'll have no soil left. Ben should get into the agropocalypse side of things, but as Leo Keith calls it.
These doctors don't get any training in nutrition. One of the last people that you should go and speak to is your family doctor, because Phil probably does more study in 1 week than your average doctor gets when they qualify in their entire training for that. But the problem with your Ken Berries and your Sean Bakers and stuff is they're not following the science, Phil. They don't understand that science is something that's supposed to be followed, not done.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's a disgrace. But also, just looping back to the American Dietetic Association, it's now the Academy for Nutrition and Dietetics or something like that. But that the founder of that, Leonard F. Cooper, was a devotee of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, and that's a whole nother area. But these are the guys whose views are getting free airtime. But the people who actually know what's going on and know how to prevent this stuff. Yeah, but here's the problem: there's no money in prevention at all. But let's move on to.
But just to wrap that up, I mean, we deal with that a lot in the upcoming Red Pill Food Revolution book. About how plant-based diets have basically been used to keep people pretty subservient. These sort of slave diets over the centuries. It's nothing new. I mean, the foods that we've created now are new and even worse than they ever were before. But it's nothing new. The elites have always stuffed themselves with meat, and they've fed the slaves the grains, and this is how it's been going on for ages. But anyway, Ben, let's get into the whole destruction of the soil and God knows what.
Oh man, I mean, where do we start? I mean, the argument against meat is based on three major premises, right? One is it's bad for your health. Bam, bam. Second one is the ethics side of things, and we could do a whole podcast just on that, really, to be honest. But the environmental one is the crazy one, and we are convinced that there is an environmental catastrophe going on right now. We're in the middle of it. It's very urgent and it should be at the forefront of everybody's minds, but it's not going on in the sky above our heads. It's going on in the earth beneath our feet. There's an amazing book called Dirt, the Erosion of Civilizations by a guy called David R. Montgomery, who looked back at all the major, because we didn't have human civilization until minimum 10,000 years ago, when we'd moved over to agriculture, because until then we were living a very extensive life. We were roaming, we were mainly nomadic, we were following the herds, following the fish, whatever it was. And you had about one human being per square mile, which is what you find with hunter-gatherer societies today in the wild. When it all moved up and either we or the Neanderthals or whatever killed off the megafauna, we had to look for other sources of food, and we had big brains, so we were able to cultivate plants and domesticate plants and animals, and agriculture began. But the problem with agriculture is it don't work. Permaculture works. I have to say this, permaculture works. It is sustainable. It builds soil. You can feed yourself that way. The problem is it's very labor intensive and not very profitable. So we can discount that. No corporation is going to be interested in growing food in a way that actually builds soil. But what we've basically been engaged in the last 10,000 years is a race to see who can mine the soil quicker than the next village or the next city state or the next corporation as it is now. But the machines that we've had since the Industrial Revolution have just taken it to a whole new level. Apparently the soil in the middle of the US was several feet deep when the first kind of white pioneers started to cross over the country. And now it's basically gone. 100 years ago, people on the eastern seaboard were starting to see clouds of dust and smell the dirt from Kansas up their noses, because we destroyed the soil through the use of the plow, through tilling. And it's absolutely shocking, but nobody's talking about this, right? Again, it's just like the health side of things, that this isn't our concern. It's all about climate change, and it's all the cow's fault. And that doesn't even make sense. Again, when white fellas started to cross America, they saw herds of bison, and these are like 2-ton beasts. These are not small, that blotted out the entire land as far as the horizon. There were millions of these things out there. And we know it's a lot of this stuff you can just do. You can resolve these issues with very small application of common sense. How many large ruminant animals, like going back to dinosaurs, if you like, has the earth had on it at any one time? Well, we know the answer to that. It's as many as it could support, because that's how nature works, right? Wherever
Ben, you left out the fact that those bison in those days used to hold their farts in.
Yes,
and
yes.
So they didn't upset Greta Thunberg.
They were much more polite in those days. I don't know about dinosaurs, but
yeah. Well,
yeah. Here's the thing. Here's how life works. Wherever you get soil, you get vegetation. Wherever you get vegetation, you get herbivorous animals that eat the vegetation, because that's what life does. Life finds ways to gather nutrients and energy. That's all the sun's energy that's been captured, and it converts it so that any living thing, all it wants to do is to survive, to get energy, to get nutrients, to build its body so it can procreate and carry on. And what we know is from all the species that we have now, they've done a rather good job at doing that over the years. And wherever you get herbivorous animals, you get carnivorous animals that recycle that energy and those nutrients yet again by turning them into carnivore. And then they die and they go back into the soil and everything goes around and everyone's pooping all over the place, which is all good.
I would like to discuss the human role in that, because I remember seeing a post last night on social media about how humans are a disease to the planet, which I am like, give me a break, right? But people really feel like if it's not the animal's fault, it's our fault as humans. And I believe that we play a vital role in managing all of this that we are slacking on in modern society, right? We Because we're so detached from nature and we're so detached from how things work, that we are not being good stewards of the earth. And I feel like those farmers and people who are into permaculture and regenerative agriculture and all of these things are reconnecting to that. And I do believe we play a vital role. So I think, Ben, I would love to kind of dive into that myth that we are a disease and we're destroying the planet, when really, I mean, obviously, modern culture and plastic and all this stuff, just this take mentality that we have is not healthy. But I do believe that humans play a vital role in this. And I think that that's a myth that I would really love to kind of tackle, especially as we're talking about, the role that meat plays in farming and stuff. And be like, oh, if we just stepped out of the picture, if humans were no longer here and we were back to, being the minority in the world, then the world would just flourish and it'd be so much better without us. And I think that that's just a horrible
it's
take
not wrong,
on
if
things.
if we disappeared. Here's the thing: if the fish disappeared, we'd have an ecological collapse. If the grasses disappeared, we'd have an ecological collapse. If humans disappeared, everything would just crack on as normal. So there is a kind of a truth in there. The problem is that it's not humans. It's not humans that are responsible for this, although they, whoever they are, want us to believe it is. And one of the really strong themes through the vegan/animal rights movement is that to quote Agent Smith in The Matrix, humans are a virus. They think that they hate humanity. It's misanthropy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this really suits the owners, because what they want is they want us to feel it's like a new form of original sin, right? Just by existing as a consumer on the planet, right? You are automatically guilty of destroying Mother Earth, right? And it's your fault, consumer, because you used that plastic straw that time, right? It's not the fault of the corporations and the powers that shouldn't be that are actually running. It's my fault for being a consumer that's causing strip mining and the pollution of the rivers and the oceans and everything like that. So it's not our fault, and we could quite easily turn things around, I think, if we chose to do it. But it doesn't suit, because corporations are all just locked into this death spiral of trying to compete. And this is what you have to remember. It wasn't that long ago, I think it was the late 19th century, when a corporation was first given the right to write up its own charter. Before then, corporations had a life expectancy, and they were supposed to expire. But that changed. We write about this in the Red Pill Food Revolution. We go into the entire history of this. It was the British and the Dutch East India companies that there was so much to steal in the Indies that they couldn't possibly get it all done in the space of 30 or 40 years. So these companies actually existed for like 150 years, because there was just too much crap to bring back and sell or put in our museums. But yeah, the corporations, and what you have to remember about the corporations is that the board of directors of these corporations have a legal obligation to maximize shareholder returns. If they fail to do that, then they are individually liable through failing their fiduciary duties to the corporation. And the problem is that ethics and sustainability and things like that get in the way of profits. So if you are a corporation like Philip Morris, cigarette manufacturer, then started buying up other companies and became the largest food corporation in the United States not too long ago, right? It's the same thing. They're in the addiction business and they're in the profit-making business. That's what they're there for. If we leave corporations to do this, then it is all going to burn, and nature will, to quote, New Model Army from about 1989, she will dance on our grave when we are dead and gone. And that's the way it's going to be. There's not going to be many humans left. They're already saying that we've got maybe 50 to 100 years of soil left, right? And then your vegans say to you, but animal agriculture uses so much land. I'm like, well, good luck trying to plant your wheat crop on a hillside in Wales that's like that, right? Where the sheep are grazing happily now. You know, it's only about 4% of the land on earth you could ever grow row crops. You know, so much more of it is marginal.
Right.
What about where the Inuit are, where the Finns, the Lapps, the Sami, the Maasai? You know, you can't grow crops in all of these places. But yes, we can regreen. We can regreen the earth. Alan Savory has shown us just how possible that is, right? But what we're doing at the moment is just doubling down on doing the exact opposite. You know, the Romans used to grow most of their olives and most of their grains in North Africa. It's the region that we now call the Sahara Desert, right? We're going the opposite way. And unless we pull on the brake and do a handbrake turn very, very soon, there is bound to be a huge collapse. And part of me thinks that they know this. I think your Klaus Schwabs and your Bill Gateses know this. Why else is Bill Gates buying up all that farmland? I don't know.
So
They do. Can I just jump in a little bit on the end of that, Marian? Sorry. This business that you said about the virus, and Ben has mentioned Bill Gates and Klaus Schwab, and if you look into what they're doing and what they're saying, they also believe that humans are a kind of virus on the earth. And these people are eugenicists. You know, we've trusted, I don't want to get your channel pulled, so we won't go too deep into this, but you know, what is the virus? Not that I'm even convinced that the virus theory is correct, you know, with the germ versus terrain business. And, you know, what is it? Is there really actually a virus? I don't know. But which virus is it that they're trying to wipe out with their pharmaceuticals? Could it be the humans? And I think that's something that we really need to wake up to, because it's really serious. This is a war. There's a war on food. There's a war between the elites and the people. And we've got to wake up about this and stop sort of arguing about, you know, which plant is healthier and, oh, you're a monster for eating meat and you rape cows and all of that kind of thing. You know, that's what I'm told. And I think I'd have remembered if I'd done that, you know. But it all of this ridiculous division. We're just humans. We have a human diet. Face it. You want to eat a few plants? Great. But we've got to wake up to this, because they are trying to, they really are trying to attack us on all fronts. And it shouldn't be, it's not country against country. That's another, you know, a huge subject, that wars were probably never for the reason we were taught at school, right? And it's the elites against the people. But it's becoming obvious now. And these last 3 years of chaos have woken a lot of people up. So, you know, let's wake more of them up, so that even if they don't eat meat now, it's there for them when they need it. And we don't destroy the soil, because then no one's eating anything.
Right. I think the agenda is not secret, right? If you watch the World Economic Forum, it's not a secret. Everything that we're talking about is not conjecture or anything. It's taken straight from the source. I think a lot of people don't like to hear that. Also don't have the time or the mental capacity to want to invest in listening to the forums and things, you know. But at the end of the day, you know, agriculture and farming and soil regeneration, that is the future of sustainability. And that's the future of, you know, stewarding the earth well. You know, climate changes all the time. The earth breathes, as people say, you know. And I'm a big fan of sustainability. I think we need to use less plastic. I think we need to, you know, get back to using products that from the earth that go back to the earth. I'm a big fan of, like, you know, glass and, you know, all of that stuff I think is super important. But I think where things go wrong is when there's that agenda and we're not getting back to the things that actually work. You know, we're not getting back to the nutrition. Like, the point is getting as much nutrients as you can and reducing toxins. And that's where health is. You know, what that can look like, everybody's on a journey, you know, and we all have to find our own path, but it's being open-minded and really looking at, where do nutrients come from and how do we get the most of them? And how do we steward that well, so that we're getting the most nutritious food possible, and by depleting the soil and by not eating animals and just farming it until we have a Sahara desert on 4% of the earth that could only grow crops to begin with, we're going to go back to eating animals because that's going to be our only option after society collapses, because that's what's going to happen. There's going to be mass starvation, right? And so stewarding the earth well is super important. And I think that that's just going to have to be a whole other episode on what does that look like, and this whole education on where do nutrients in our food come from. An orange from the 1950s had, many more nutrients than an orange now. And same with even with animals. If they're not growing on a regenerative farm, they're getting fed hay where it's dried. So a lot of the nutrients are gone. So we're eating nutrient depleted products, whether it's animal based or plant based. And you have to, and that's where I think the paleo movement was so vital for me, was getting back to life cycles and nutrition and making things grow, eating animals that were raised in a natural habitat, eating the food it was supposed to eat. Like that was like going from vegan to that. Kind of the ethical side at the time was like really good for my soul, was just realizing the life cycle, right? And I think a lot of people, if you're really open to health, I encourage you to continue. We've mentioned a lot of books, and I'm gonna have to go back and write everything down so I can get the links for everybody. But there's so much out there, and just have an open mind. Like this could go on for hours, and we're gonna have to split up the episodes and go deeper, because it's just there's so much here. But now that we've kind of blown everybody's mind, where can they start? Where do you go from here when you have this information?
Wow. Well, I guess it depends. It depends whether what your goals are and where your starting point is, because, for example, people think that there is a carnivore diet. I mean, on the diet side, it's not really. I mean, if somebody is pretty healthy and they don't have any autoimmunity or anything like that, but they just have some metabolic issues like diabetes that I really don't think is even a disease. It's just carb poisoning, really, and you can get over it pretty quickly. And so somebody like that, yeah, if they eat dairy and they eat pork and chicken, and yeah, stuff your face, it's going to be great. But some people, need to go much more strict, and sort of the fatty beef and lamb is, there's an expression, isn't there, that I think it was made up for bipolar people, that bipolar people are like everybody else, only more so. And that's the same as us when we've had autoimmunity, that we can tell the quality of the food. It's a very different experience for me to eat chicken than it is to eat a really good fatty steak or lamb chop or something. It's very different. These, as somebody once called it's walking corn. Chicken have fed this crap and whatever. I would say, where to start. Just understand that it isn't about going and buying the plant foods and that's all going to sort all the planet out and everything like that, like Greta says. I mean, it's absolute nonsense. The carnivores are probably at the forefront of the movement to get rid of factory farming and stuff like that. The vegans go, oh, well, it's disgusting. All your food is created in these awful... No, this is our food. We care about it more than they do. So we'd like to see all of the pigs and chickens out. We'd like to see all the cows out on the pasture, which is being taken up for their food, being grown for the tofu burgers, and whatever. So I think it's about people just going and buying local grass-fed beef and just trying to and lamb and other meats or whatever, but just trying to get the prices down and support these people, because otherwise they're going to go down the pan. They're trying to get rid of farmers. They're forcing them out, as you mentioned, and in Holland as well. And now they're injecting animals with stuff and faking pandemics and saying, which obviously they've never done before. And, it is very, very dodgy business going on. And we have to see what they're doing. It's a slowly boiling frog situation, isn't it? Oh, it'll be all right. Oh, meat's gone up a little bit in the supermarket. Oh, well, we'll have a little bit of this plant food instead. No, go down to your local farmer, get more nutrition in. Because that nutrition comes in a smaller package. Often, if you're clever, you can save money on a carnivore diet or close to carnivore diet, because you're not buying all the crap that has no nutrients in it that your body then craves and it's addicted to. You have to graze all day long on this stuff. So support the farmers, support your body by getting the maximum nutrients in the smallest possible package, which is basically meat, isn't it? and look into the environmental side of it and see how hypocritical the whole thing is. And if anybody's interested or thinks this is mad, I mean, I would say to people on the health side, if you are ill, try a carnivore diet for 90 days. Even a vegan diet's not going to kill you in that time. Even if you're keto now and you've got some plants with it, try dropping those plants out. Go meat only for 90 days or 30 days just, and see the difference. And then, absolutely bring them back in if you like them and you have no issue with them, whatever. But we these tiny little threads sometimes, like the difference we see between, say, people with MS, some quite complicated things, when they just drop the last of the plant foods out and go fully carnivore, they get great success. Whereas even more success and more difference than coming from a processed food diet to, say, a keto diet with lots of fatty meat. So, understand all these little things, follow people, we'll put some links maybe up to our stuff, below the episode, we'll send them to you and whatever. And just see, we've sort of summed it up in that. And I mean, just support people like Marian as well, who's just giving out great info. I mean, your podcast and all your info on your website is fantastic. So, support this and stop shouting at people for not being doctors and whatever and being quacks and being like, these other people are the quacks. It's happened since the whole Rockefeller takeover of the medical system early last century, and throwing out the real healers and calling them quacks. No. These people are quacks. Nope. who are trying to ruin your health now and kill you, and all the corporations. So start buying locally, stop buying from the corporations, stop buying the junk food, stop buying Harvey Kellogg's anti-masturbation cornflakes. And this is not a healthy breakfast. This has come from religious dogma. It's insane. Stop it with the cereals. Stop it with the seed oils. If that's all you do, you're going to find you're a hell of a lot better.
And as I'd kind of sum all that up by saying that there's one person you should be listening to above all the others, but the TV, the doctors, the studies, all of that. Listen to your own body first and foremost. Try going high fat, high meat for 90 days. Be honest with how you feel. See what happens to your brain. See what happens to your waistline. Wow. I mean, the results that we see are incredible. If you're on diabetes meds, get ready for a shock, But yeah, listen to yourself. Don't listen to any corporate sponsored propaganda whatsoever, and let go of this original sin that humans are a virus. We're not. We have a place in the food web that I believe is divinely ordained. We're supposed to be here. We have a job to do, and we know times are difficult, but first and foremost, you need to be responsible for your own health, your own happiness, and your own feeling of self-worth in this lifetime, because your governments and the corporations and the non-governmental organizations do not have your best interest at heart. Look after yourself.
Yeah, brilliant. One little thing I'd say to a lot of people will be saying there's so much conflicting information. And I remember it, you're looking at this guy, this diet guru, and this vegan one and that one. And how do you sort through the bullshit? How do you sort through it? For me, it's not infallible, but a really good one that will take you further in every day than it took me in 30 years of studying diet in the wrong way. Is it ancestral? Did we do it? What would we have eaten at this locality in this season more than 10,000 years ago before we farmed grains? What would we have eaten? And you could get a pretty good idea of what's going to be healthy for you. And refer it ancestrally. So study anthropology and study plant toxins, and then make up your own mind. And then you'll probably be able to see through the nonsense that everybody's pushing at you. Don't go from one diet guru to another. Don't listen to us. What did our ancestors do? What do the tribes do? And what are the toxins in what we eat?
We're just over here giving permission to trust your body, permission to think for yourself, and permission to experiment. That's how you're going to feel, how you feel your best. And you just have to give yourself time. And I think the other thing I would like to stress is just think about nutrient density. Like if you really sit down and honestly look at what's nutrient dense and what's not, and you're going to have to, again, go outside and think for yourself. you're going to find what works for you if you listen to your body. So we're all on the same page here. Like, trust yourself. You have our permission to experiment and to try and to think for yourself. Thank you guys so much for joining me. This has been absolutely incredible. I'm hoping that you guys will come back and we can go deeper into each of these topics, because I feel like we just scratched the surface and there's just so much more that we can help people understand and continue on their health journey.
Brilliant. Thanks for having us on. It's been great.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks, Marian.
Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. If you found this episode helpful, would you do me a favor and help others find it by leaving a review, sharing a screenshot on social media, or sharing the link with a friend? By you sharing what you've learned, others are able to find this podcast and join our community. Be sure to check out my website, www.roadtolivingwhole.com, for over 160 delicious recipes, a variety of meal plans, and a blog packed full of even more healthy living tips. If you'd like to learn more about how to work with me as your coach, you can schedule a free consult through www.roadtolivingwhole.com/health-coaching/. Until next time, friend. Bye.